This Friday night, I found myself speeding through the quiet streets of my neighborhood, heart pounding, mind spinning. I still can't believe I'm not in jail right now. But let me take you back to how it all started. It was past midnight, around 12 a.m., but my night had ended hours earlier, right after a huge argument with my girlfriend. I stormed off to bed around 8:30 p.m., angry and exhausted, determined to sleep off the frustration. I didn't want to think about what I'd said, or even worse, end up calling to apologize. I forced myself to sleep, but then my phone rang. I glanced at the clock. It was 9:21 p.m. It was my ex-girlfriend calling. My heart skipped a beat. Why would she be calling me after all this time? I almost didn't pick up, but something in me was curious. When I answered, her voice sounded rushed, almost panicked. Please, I need you to come over. It's an emergency. Now, let me explain. She had two houses. One was in the same area as mine, and the other was far out, about 18 kilometers away. Thankfully, she was close by this time. Even though I didn't want to get involved, there was something in her voice that made me agree. Give me 10 minutes, I said. By 9:32 p.m., I was out the door, heading to her place. I barely had time to think before I pulled up. As soon as I parked, the back door of my car swung open. She jumped in, dragging a man behind her. He looked like he was in pain, clutching his chest. Drive, she screamed. Without thinking, I hit the gas. My mind was racing. Who was this guy? And why was she acting so desperate? From the rearview mirror, I saw her trying to calm the man down, but he wasn't looking good. His face was pale and he was breathing heavily. Where are we going? I asked, trying to stay calm. To my house, she replied, her voice shaky. Just drive. I glanced at her in the mirror again. What's wrong with him? What happened? She didn't answer. I asked again, more urgently. Tell me what's going on. I don't know, she snapped. We were at a small party and someone brought out some drugs. He took a pill and minutes later he started feeling sick. I didn't know what to do. I can't call an ambulance. There were drugs. I called you because you're the only person I could trust. Before I could even process what she had said, I spotted a police barrier up ahead. My heart sank. There were four cars in front of us, and in no time we'd be next in line. My mind raced. We need a story, I muttered. Something believable. I turned to her. Lay his head on your lap and act like you're helping him. I could see the fear in her eyes as she did what I said, fanning his face. A flashlight beamed into the car from the passenger side window, followed by a loud knock. I rolled down the window, my heart thudding in my chest. Good evening, officer. The officer leaned in, eyes narrowing as he looked at me. Where are you going this late? Hospital, I blurted out. He's very sick. The officer pointed the flashlight into the back seat. Who's sick? What's wrong with him? Before I could speak, my ex burst into tears. Officer, please, he fainted. We're taking him to the hospital. The officer stared at us for what felt like forever. My pulse was racing. I was ready for the worst. Finally, he spoke. There's a hospital not too far from here. When you get there, mention my name. I'll let the officers on duty know you're coming, and they'll make sure you're given preferential treatment to get your friend the help he needs. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment. I muttered a quick, thank you, and started driving toward the hospital as instructed. The tension in the car was still thick, but at least we had a plan, something to focus on. But then she spoke. No, my ex said, her voice firm. We're not going to the hospital. We're going to my house. I froze for a second, my foot lifting off the gas as I processed her words. What? I asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Why? He needs help. That's not the plan, she cut me off. Just drive to my house. Suddenly, it dawned on me. There might be more to than she was letting on. Why had she insisted on calling me? Why avoid the hospital when her friend was clearly in bad shape? Before I could confront her, I felt something cold press against the back of my head. I hadn't even noticed her bringing it into the car, but there it was, and her voice was ice cold as she said, We're going to my house. No questions. Just drive. My heart pounded harder than ever, a new fear settling in. This was far worse than I imagined.
Subscribe to the Think Up Studio for more.